Good evening.
Fantastic.
Thank you for joining us again. This is the second part in our marriage communication series. Hopefully, next month in January, we're going to have a third part. And really, I was thinking when we come to a lecture, we hope to hear profound insights, advice that will make our marriage better. In reality, even if the speaker doesn't say anything new, even if he just tells you stories and no tools, it's still worth it. Just the fact that you took time out to work on your marriage, just the fact that you are thinking how to improve your marriage, that already will bear fruit. Whether you're watching this with your spouse or alone, you will benefit from it just by spending an hour thinking about how to improve your marriage. But on top of that, today you will hear some important ideas how to argue correctly and how to de-escalate conflicts. And just to review
Rabbi, I think you went mute. Rabbi Yuhanan, we can't hear you. Rabbi Yochanan, we can't hear you.
and we spoke about the
Rabbi, we lost you for about a minute. We didn't hear anything you said in the last minute. I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that?
Yes. So last time we met, we spoke about the fact that every person comes into a marriage with baggage. Behind every face, there is a child that carries with it all the emotions and memories from the childhood. And when we're speaking to the person with expecting him to react like an adult, but we have to remember that what we may mean by our words is not how that person interprets it, because they had different childhood. And besides that, there may be certain parts of their character that did not mature the same way as others. And so we have to be mindful that sometimes the reaction to our communication is going to be different than what we expected, because there is a different person that we are not thinking about. We spoke about the importance of expressing your desires and not forcing the other spouse to guess and predict what you wanted, and thereby avoiding failed needs that are not met. Lowering your expectations is one way, but expressing your expectations is another way. We spoke about pain management, how not to assemble hurt, but to express it and resolve it. And we spoke about how to forgive. And most importantly, we spoke about how to ask for forgiveness. And today, we are going to speak about conflict management. And next time, we're going to speak about the next level in marriage, whereas now we're speaking about how to create peace at home. Next week, we're going to speak about how to build your marriage, how to create happiness, satisfaction in marriage. So every couple fights in their marriage, and the problem that happens when people get married is that when they get married, they think that things will go smoothly. They think that they are perfect for each other. And make no mistake, they are for each other, but they're not perfect for each other until they work on themselves, until they work on their marriage. Only when they will change themselves, only when they will improve themselves, they will polish the rough edges, then towards the middle or end of their marriage, they will be perfect for each other. But when two people get married, they're not perfect for each other, but they are for each other. And sometimes after a month or two of marriage, a spouse will contact me and say, Rabbi, I made a mistake. I thought that we are for each other. Now I see we're not. Because they thought that they will not have any conflicts. They will agree. They will only say, yes, my dear. Yes, my darling. And by the way, that's what you should always say to each other. Yes, my dear. Yes, my darling. But they expect that there will be no disagreements, no conflict, no fighting. And that is unrealistic. You can try to live a billion years and try to get married to every human being on earth, and you will see that a billion times out of a billion, you will have disagreements, you will have arguments, and you will have conflict. So what do some people say? Must be, marriage is not for me. I tried it. Unfortunately, either I got divorced or I'm not happily married. And therefore, I must say that marriage is not something for me. And in reality, marriage is for everyone. The only thing is, you have to come with proper expectations. The expectation is that there will be a conflict. The expectation is that marriage will not be perfect from the beginning. I will have to work on myself. I will have to work on the marriage. And only then the marriage can be happy. It can have a happy ending. So number one, realize that if you're experiencing conflict, if you're experiencing disagreements and fights, that is perfectly normal. 100% of marriages have disagreements and fights. In one of our classes, I said that it's actually a good thing for a couple to argue in front of their children if they know how to resolve their conflict peacefully. If they don't know, and it's going to escalate into screaming and hurtful words, put downs, and possibly even physical fights, then it's better not to do it in front of their children. So fighting in a dirty way is damaging to the marriage and it's damaging to the children. But fighting in a kosher way, in a clean way, is healthy for the marriage. That's part of a healthy marriage, and it's good for children to observe. This way they will see that it's okay to express your opinion. It's okay to listen to someone else's opinion. It's okay to give in. And they will grow up into more mature adults. So practice fighting alone, not with your children there. But once you see that you're successful in controlling your anger, you can safely fight in front of your children. Okay. Now, one of the examples that I want to give at the beginning of what happens when a couple fights is the following. The mother usually is going to say, "Oh, I'm worried about our son or daughter. They're graduating from, let's say, elementary school. They have to go to high school next year. And we didn't pick the high school for them yet. Time is flying, and I don't know what high school they're going to go to." They express the concern. What will the other spouse say? Usually the husband. They can react in one of two ways. One positive, one negative. Let's first look at the negative way. The husband might say, as a response to his wife's concern, don't worry, we still have time. I'm busy right now, leave me alone. Or, you always worry too much, don't make a big deal out of it. So this is a negative way of answering your spouse's concern. Why? Because not involved in the family, you don't care about your child, or that you are not paying attention to what they're saying, you're not listening to their concern, they're expressing their pain, their stress, and you dismissing it. What is the positive way of answering this concern? Yes, I hear you. I agree that it's an important decision. Yes, we really have to speak about it. Now, if it's a good time for you to speak, so speak right then and there. But usually the times don't match. When one spouse wants to speak about something important, the other spouse is involved in some other activity, either in relaxation or entertainment, or worrying about their own problems. So if it's not the proper time for you to speak about whatever the spouse is offering, what you can say is, "My dear, I agree, it's a very important topic. Yes, we really have to worry about it. We have to think about it, and we have to figure it out. But right now, I am tired. Let's make a time to speak about it this week." Or, "Right now, I'm busy with a project. Right now, I don't have a headspace, or I'm emotionally drained. Let's find a time and set a time tomorrow or later this week. Let's make an appointment, and we will choose an hour to devote to discuss it." This is important. Even if you let your spouse know that you heard them and you say, "Yes, I hear you, but I can't do it now," that's not enough, because they will think that you're just pushing it off, that you're delaying it, you're trying to procrastinate. But when you offer them to choose a time, then they see that you are serious. "Yes, it is important, but right now I'm busy. Let's choose another time to talk. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. when I have lunch break, or Motzei Shabbat when we put children to sleep, or on a Sunday afternoon when children are playing or in school, or I'll call you from work and we'll talk about it. Choose a time right then and there. And by the way, if a fight develops late at night and both husband and wife are tired, the best way is to do the same thing. To say, we are both tired right now. Let us postpone our argument until tomorrow. Let us choose a time tomorrow to discuss this and to resolve our disagreements. It's not a good idea to fight until we resolve it and go to sleep peacefully, because experience shows that when couples try to resolve their issues at night, it only gets worse because they're tired, their patience is very low, and they are very sensitive. They react very quickly to any improper comment or lack of honor that they expect to be given to them. So it's not in your it's not to your advantage to fight late at night. So if your spouse doesn't realize it, offer it to them. Say, I'm very tired. I'm worried that I might overreact. I might say something improper, and I care for you too much. I want to have a fresh head so that I can think about it properly. Let's go to sleep, and tomorrow we will continue our fight. And you choose a time. So whether you're fighting late at night or your spouse wants to talk about something and you're busy, you can say no, but first you have to acknowledge their concern, and then you have to apologize, explain why you cannot speak about it now, and offer them another time to speak about it. Now, one more point before we go into tools is that whenever there is a conflict, an argument, often there is a pursuer and a withdrawer, which means if two people are adults and they're respectful and they're ready for a conversation, a respectful conversation will happen and they will resolve their issues. But what if the wife, for example, offers to have a conversation to discuss a topic and the husband is not ready? So then what usually happens is that the wife will turn into a pursuer and the husband will turn into a withdrawer, which means the husband will show his initial inability to discuss, and the wife will press on it, push him, try to force him to speak right then and there. And the same thing, the husband wants to discuss the finances or whatever else of the family, and the wife doesn't want to talk about it. So now the husband becomes the pursuer and the wife becomes the withdrawer. And what usually happens is that the pursuer wants attention, wants your time, and the withdrawer is not ready to give that time, to give that attention. And now they start misjudging. The withdrawer is looking at the pursuer and says, why is she nagging me? Why can't she leave me alone? Doesn't she see that I'm sick, tired, busy, not in the mood? And he develops a very negative impression about the spouse. Or what about the pursuer? The wife says, I want to help our family. I want to improve my husband, which is not a good idea. I'm doing it for our benefit. He doesn't see it like that. So there's miscommunication. And the opposite, the husband is saying, I'm just trying to finish my project. I'm just trying to relax. I'm just trying to deal with my own issues. If they would just give me time, I would be able to deal with it later. I'm stressed right now. If I speak about it now, there will be a conflict. It would be for their own good to leave me alone and come back another time. That's what he's thinking. And she is looking at him, running away from the conversation. What is she thinking? The wife is thinking, look, he's incapable of making decisions. He doesn't care about the family. He doesn't care about me. He's only thinking about himself. So you see how she's thinking positively about her intention, and he is misjudging her intention. She's thinking for his benefit or for the family's benefit. He's thinking she's nagging him and harassing him. And the opposite, he is thinking to find a more quiet time and place, to find a time when he's going to be more calm and focused to deal with it. And she's misjudging him and thinking that he's trying to run away. He is irresponsible. So this is another example why it's important to express what you're about to do. The wife should say, my dear, I would like to speak to you about something important. This way you prepare the husband, your spouse, that you are seeking their time, their attention. And on the husband's part, he has to express his either willingness or unpreparedness to discuss it at this moment. He shouldn't just withdraw, just ignore, but he should express it. My dear, I hear you, but right now I'm not available. Let us choose another time. If instead she just drops the bomb, yes, we have to speak about it. I want to discuss it now. And instead of expressing his point of view that now it's not a good time, he runs away from the conversation and blames her. Leave me alone. You're trying to control me. I'm tired right now. I'm busy right now. There's this miscommunication. So again, if you want to discuss something important with your spouse, prepare them. Ask their permission. I would like to speak about something important with you. Do you have time? Do you have strength to think? They'll say, what is it, my dear? And you'll say, I want to discuss our son's future for next year. And he may say, yes, sure, I have 10 minutes now. Let's start the conversation. And if necessary, we will postpone it. Or he'll say, my dear, I am busy right now, but it is important for me. I really want to resolve this issue. Let's speak about it tomorrow or in half an hour or when we go on vacation. So keep that in mind. Don't become the pursuer, but rather offer the discussion, ask for permission if the spouse has the ability now. And on the opposite side, if you are on the receiving end of a attention-seeking spouse, Don't run away, but calmly explain your point of view. Yes, I agree with you. It is important, but right now I am not available. Let's postpone it. Now, let's the most important word is compromise. When we live alone, we are thinking about we're thinking about ourselves. You usually don't have to consider someone else's point of view, besides our parents and our siblings, which are there just to tell us what to do, but then we're by ourselves. We may have conflict with our siblings, but for majority of the day, we are our own boss. Whereas with a spouse, we're not our own boss, because our decisions have an effect on someone else's life. So it's important that when you get married, you change from I to we. And when you go shopping, you say not what I want to eat tonight, what do we need from the store? Whatever decision you make, what career is good for me? No, what career should I choose so that it should be good for the family? You have to switch your whole mindset from thinking I to start thinking we. And you have to understand that your spouse is not the same as you. They have their own unique needs and wants, desires, and you cannot just ignore it or misinterpret it. You cannot just say, oh, they'll probably like this. As usually happens, the wife tells the husband, can you please get apples? And he goes to the store and he says, you know what? I like sour green apples. So he buys sour green apples. And he brings it to the wife and she says, what did you bring? I asked you to buy apples. He says, what is this? It's not apples? She says, these are sour apples. They're not apples. I want them sweet red apples. That's what I mean when I say apples. So when you go to a store and you're not sure of something, call and ask. If you want this or that, or buy a variety. And if your spouse calls you and asks you for details, don't get upset. Those details are important because they will avoid conflicts that your spouse is not providing for you. Yes, this is important. Whoever needs, I can send them for later, just text me. So, don't expect that your spouse will like what you like, but rather understand that your spouse will have different desires. And so find out what can I get for you? Oh, get for me this. What kind of this? What flavor? And when you go to the store, keep that in mind. And whatever you do, keep that in mind. What about my spouse? But because we are different, and because we're not God, we're not all present, all knowing, all capable, all able, there will be disagreements and conflicts, because not always I will be able to satisfy your every desire. And not always I will be able to figure out everything that you like. So what happens when I forgot to ask your opinion, or when I did ask and our opinions disagree? So now comes the famous word compromise. So once you ask your spouse for their opinion, for their desire, and you find that it is in conflict with yours, you have to make a decision. Do I insist on what I want, or do I compromise? Now, that's a difficult thing for many people. What do you mean? Why should I compromise? If I start compromising, they're gonna sit on my head. They're gonna they're gonna get used to controlling me. If I say yes now, they will expect yes forever. So here you have to calm down. Don't stress too much over this, because you always retain the ability to say no. Just because you say yes now does not mean that you're signing off your ability to say no forever. Even if you say yes, and even if you see that, yes, you know what, I can live with what they want, and you agree, that does not mean that the next day you can politely say no. That does not mean that you cannot say no anymore. So don't be afraid to compromise. If right now you can handle to do things differently, do them differently. Do them the way your spouse wants. If you absolutely cannot, then express it to them and say, I would usually love to do what you want, but right now I don't see a way out. And keep in mind your priorities, because if you just talking to a friend and you have a competition, oh, I'm right, no, you're right, I wanted my way, you wanted your way, your risk is not so great. Okay, you might lose a friend. That's the worst that's going to happen. But you'll get another friend, or you'll live without a friend. Not a big deal. But your spouse, your wife, or your husband is your priority one. There's nothing in the whole wide world, besides God, of course, there's nothing in the whole wide world more important than your spouse. It's even more, the spouse is even more important than your children. Your spouse is even more important than your parents. As scary as it is to say it, your spouse is more important than your children and your parents. And therefore, when you're getting married, you have to get married with a thought that I'm getting married forever. I'm getting married and I will work on my marriage as the highest priority in my life, even more important than my career. If there is a conflict between my marriage and my career, my marriage will win. If there is a conflict between my marriage and my parents, my marriage will win. Because my parents will stay my parents no matter what. I can find another job, I can find another friend. And my children, they're my children. They have to listen to me, even if they're not happy. But my spouse is number one. And therefore, when you're thinking, should I compromise or not? The answer should usually be yes. But I'm not going to get what I want. That's not important as much as my marriage. But my children might not get the best education. That's not as important as my marriage. But my parents might be upset. That's not as important as my marriage. But my friend will be disappointed. That's not as important as my marriage. So keep in mind, when there is a conflict between you and your spouse, and you are considering to give in, to compromise, keep in mind that most of the time, that's the best thing you can do. That's the best investment into your own life, because you're investing in your business number one. Your business number one is to be a good spouse. As the Torah writes, it's not good for a human being to be alone, unmarried, which means what is good? What's good is for a human being to be married. What's the ultimate good? Is for a human being to be married. That's it. Nothing else should matter. If I will have a successful marriage, my parents will be happy. If I have a successful marriage, my children will be happy. Even if here and there we don't raise them properly, that's okay. If we don't make proper decisions concerning our children once in a while, that's fine. They'll survive. The main thing for success, total success of a human being, is his marriage. If your marriage is a happy one, your life will be a happy one. So therefore, put it into your head that my marriage is worth every last penny that I have. My marriage is worth every last bit of energy that I have. My marriage is worth all the discomforts that I may endure. So when you approach a conflict, don't approach it from a position of comfort. You're sitting on your couch and should I compromise with my husband or with my wife and give in and do what they want me to do, but that will create some discomfort? Or should I just enjoy my comfort? No, that's not the way you should look at it. The way you should look at it is, my life is on the line. My marriage, the most important thing in my life, is on the line. It's not about comfort. It's about saving my life in this world and in the next. So is it worth to compromise for my spouse? Of course. Of course. Nothing can be more important than your spouse. So compromise is number one word in marriage. Of course, before you come to compromise, first find out what they want. And maybe if you know in advance what they want, you can accommodate each other. But if you cannot accommodate, it's either one or the other who is going to win. You must compromise. And when you compromise, don't feel bad for yourself, but think, I am investing into the best business possible. And not only that, I am building my character. I'm becoming a giver. I'm becoming a better human being, for which I will be appreciated. My spouse is going to love me, and God is going to love me. When I compromise, when I give in, I build my marriage, I build my relationship with my spouse, and I build my own olam haba, because I create myself into a better human being. Now, the second word that is important in marriage is, surprisingly, no. Of course, not always you will be able to compromise and say yes. even though that should be the goal and that should be the majority of your responses. But sometimes you will have to say no. And it is acceptable. It is permitted to say no to your spouse. But of course, you have to do it properly. Not with a sour face, not with an angry expression, with blame. Again, you're asking me, you always ask me, why can't you leave me alone? Can't you see I'm tired? No. Rather, you say no in a pleasant way by saying, I would love to do that, but I can't do it now. Maybe I will be able to do it later. You have the right to say no whenever you need. Don't be afraid to say no, but it is not the first option. The first option is to say yes and be happy about it. But if you have to say no, be free to say no in a polite way. You know, sometimes you can say a no to a person and he will feel so good about it. On the other hand, you can say yes to a person and he'll hate you for it. So if you express your love towards that person and your desire to help them and your distress at not being able to help them, say, I'm really sorry. I really want to help you. I love you so much and I care for you so much and I really want to help you. But right now I can't. But maybe in a few minutes I will be able to. Or maybe tomorrow I will be able to. Or maybe I can refer you to someone who can help you. So you can say a no in such a way that the person will apologize for even asking you. They will see that you feel so bad saying no that they will tell you, don't worry, it's okay. I'm sorry that I asked you. Please continue doing what you are doing. It's more important. It was silly of me to ask you to help me. So that's the smart way of saying no in such a way that the person loves you for it. He loves you for saying no. And of course, you shouldn't say yes in a nasty way, because if you're saying yes anyway, if you're doing it anyway, might as well gain some points on it. Don't say yes and suffer doing it, and then your spouse is upset at you that you said no, yes in a bad way. So learn how to say no politely and learn how to say yes happily. If you see that your spouse is going to win anyway, so say yes happily and earn some brownie points along the way. And the third thing everyone needs to learn, in addition to compromising, in addition to learning how to say no properly, is accepting no. If you are the one asking and your spouse says no, and your spouse says, I can't, you have to accept no for an answer. And in fact, our sages teach us that accepting a no is a commandment in the Torah. And that's very surprising. How is it that accepting no is a commandment? And that is because in Torah it says, Lo tikom v'lo titor. Don't take revenge and don't bear grudge. When do we have opportunity to take revenge? When someone said no to us. We ask someone for a favor and they say no. The Torah tells us, don't take revenge, accept the no, and don't take revenge. If next time they ask you for something, don't say no, and don't bear a grudge. If somebody said no to you, don't be upset about it. Okay, I'll accept the no, but I'll be upset about it. No, the Torah says you must accept a no, and you have to be happy about it. So every time your spouse says no and you let go, you leave them alone, you accept their no, you're fulfilling a mitzvah, a commandment from the Torah. And the sign of a mature individual is the ability to say no. Children can't accept no. They cry, they whine, they throw a tantrum. And it's our job, and we're going to speak about it in our parenting classes, how to train your child to learn to accept no. But as mature adults, we have the ability to accept a no. Now, the fourth aspect of conflict management, let's say there is something that bothers you about your spouse, and you argue about it, and you try to change them, and you're usually not successful, and you fight about it, and constantly it's on your mind. How do you change your spouse? You have a conflict, you don't disagree with the way they do things, with the way they think, with the way they talk, cook, clean, work, talk, walk, whatever it is. Look, you want to change your spouse, and they're resisting it naturally. What are the proper steps to take to change your spouse? Now, first of all, it is better to leave changing your spouse for someone else, for their rabbi, for their mentor, for their friend. If you need to see a change in your spouse, ideally, you should inspire them by recommending that they should go to a lecture, they should speak to a rabbi, that they should sign up for a self-development course. Ideally, you will see a greater success if someone else deals with them. But let's say you're the only one who can do it. What do you do to help them change? If you absolutely cannot live with the way they are, and you absolutely must change them, what do you do? Number one, figure out what bothers you. Don't just complain generally, but identify specific reason or the specific behavior that bothers you for yourself. Not to view your spouse negatively, but identify the particular behavior that you don't like. Everything else, express your gratitude and praise your spouse for all the other things they do properly. Identify what you absolutely want your spouse to change. Number two, explain to them what you want. Don't assume that they know what bothers you. Don't just suffer over there or complain generally, assuming that they know what you're upset at, but rather write it down for them or say to them in a respectful way, this is what hurts me, this is what bothers me. Number three, whenever you see even a slight improvement, praise them. Whenever you see that they do something good in that area, praise them. This is a major part in improving someone. You cannot improve someone just by pointing out their fault. Usually when you point out someone's fault, you drain them of their energy. By praising them for what they have done well, you energize them. you charge them, and you give them inspiration to continue on that same path. So if usually your husband forgets to take out garbage, don't start by telling him, oh, why do you always forget to take out garbage? But rather, wait for that day that he takes out the garbage and praise him for it and say, wow, thank you so much for remembering to take out the garbage. And a few minutes later say, I'm so happy that you took out this garbage. I can only imagine how it would smell over here if it would still be here. And a few minutes later say, I appreciate that you're so responsible, that you always think how to make me happy. And continue repeating the praise. And for sure, he will say to himself, it feels good. I like that my wife is praising me. You know what? I'm gonna do it more often. I'm gonna make sure to take out garbage every day. And here the trick is, don't take it for granted. If your husband improves, start praising him incessantly. Because if you stop praising him, he'll say, you know what? I'm tired now. Today I'm gonna skip it. What's in it for me anyway? My wife doesn't pay attention to it. So whatever good behavior you see in your spouse, praise them for your own good, because then your spouse will be more likely to continue with that behavior. And then when they do something that you don't like, even though you've expressed your desire, they still do something that you don't like, instead of rebuking them and blaming them and accusing them, just show your displeasure and express your hurt using the words I, not you. For example, I felt hurt, or it smelled the whole day. It was hard for me to be in the kitchen. Or I would have liked it this way. So this is a two-pronged approach. When your spouse does something good, you praise them. This way you will encourage them to continue doing good things. And when your spouse does something wrong, express your hurt. You can have a sad look on your face, and you can say, I would have liked it this way. I felt disappointed. It hurt me. Without blaming, without saying always, without making them feel like they are a bad person, but rather just pointing out that they did something wrong. I would have liked it this way. When this happened, I was hurt. So again, you have to show them what's making you unhappy, but you have to make sure you still show them that you love them, that you still respect them, that you still value them. You only disagree with their action, but not with who they are. And lastly, be patient. If you want to change someone, use the positive reinforcement, use the expression of your hurt. Again, express your desire and be patient. Don't nag, don't expect immediate results. Be patient and slowly, with praise and reminder, gentle reminder of what you don't like, your spouse will surely change. And in the worst case, if they don't change, at least you will avoid confrontations, fights, hurt feelings. You will avoid that your husband or wife will hate you, chas v'shalom. So even if you fail in your approach, if your spouse is stiff-necked and unwilling to change, at least you will have a more calm and peaceful life for yourself. Don't forget that when we become angry, we only hurting ourselves. We are feeling our heartbeat. We are feeling our racing thoughts. Our spouse doesn't feel our heartbeat. Our spouse doesn't know our thoughts. So our body is being deteriorated. Our heart is being worn out, and we're not accomplishing anything. By using these techniques, knowing that marriage is important, the most important endeavor in your life, the most important business in your life, by knowing that it's worth to compromise because marriage is so important, by knowing that if something is a must for me, I have the right to say no. I can express what I need, and I can express that I cannot accommodate them in a polite way. By knowing how to accept no from my spouse, we will create more peace. We will not become angry. And by knowing how to treat our spouse if we want to change, we will avoid the hurt build-up. That if we feel that our spouse will stay the same, then every day it drips and drips and drips, and we're building our hurt. But if we are working on our spouse by praising them and by reminding them what we don't like, we have hope, and we will see improvement constantly. So with this, I'm finishing the new material. If you have questions, you can unmute yourself or ask in the chat. And again, the recording will be available in a few hours, and I can send it to whoever sends the request. May we all have happiness in our marriage. May we all have peace, shalom in our marriage. May we all work on our own character and help our spouse to improve theirs. May we be a good role model for our children. Thank you for listening. Have a good night and Shabbat Shalom.